I'll just give you my intermediate thoughts. We might have thermal storage will be dominant for maybe a little over 10 years until we move to batteries. Nitrate salts are great to replace erythritol, but metals are so simple, and maybe that's where we'll start. So we're not sure what to do next, and we're not sure it's going to work. It's kind of scary, but a little exciting. And I want to know, what do you all think? Thanks.
Thank you, Pete. That's a quick one.
Well, it was meant to be quick, right? Because
yeah.
I'm looking to share.
Yes, you can either raise your hand or raise your voice or send a question on the chat. Until someone else asks, I can maybe start. I just wonder, how large is the largest pot that you have used in this kind of technology?
Okay, so, and when you say you, I'm going to feel this as the learning community. Okay?
Yes.
So myself, I've used 4 quarts. So we've made, big 4 kilogram stews with chicken and potatoes and everything. And these are without using thermal storage, right? I mean, one of the things is thermal storage is kind of sexy. People are really interested. It's powerful. But the straight cook, 100 watts, is so inexpensive, and it always works. So I've used, for 100 watts, I've used the a 4-quart pot. But Alexis, in Learning Energy Farms, now this is a small, I don't know if he's here. I'm talking about you, Alexis. This is a small intentional community, and they do almost all their cooking on ISEC now. And so they've built a 350 watt, I believe, model where they cook, large amounts. They have a large oven. They cook in large pots.
Okay.
You're limited by the power. So if you have just 100 watt, which we can buy a 100 watt panel for $50 in India, then you're limited to about 5 kilograms a day.
5 kilograms, okay, for 100 watts. Someone?
Paul.
No? Okay. Yes?
Yeah. Okay, Stefan, can I ask?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Peter. I've got your paper. It's a very cute idea. I have a few practical questions. You mentioned already, the size of the pot. My question is, if you say this isolated pan with the erythritol or anything in it, how much would it cost? If you have an idea, say.
Sure. So, erythritol, potentially we could get it as cheap as $1 a kilogram if we imported a lot of it. The individual pots are on the order of $5. And so the phase change assembly in terms of parts is not going to be very expensive. I think certainly under $20. And that's if we have people building them that don't have high salaries. If we built them in the United States, they'd be expensive. If we build them in Ghana, they'll be less expensive, certainly, than the solar panels. A solid chunk of aluminum is going to be very easy to build.
But I wonder, I
Yeah.
know what kind of pots they use in Kenya or elsewhere, these aluminum ones. And you have to buy them for, and they are a few dollars. Now I think you have a double-walled pot with the insulation in between. So by far, I think that's sort of an expensive thing. But because it's very practical, we work with people who have almost nothing. So $10 is a lot for them, and they have to, if they want to pay it, they pay it alone. So that's my perspective from it.
Sure.
There's another question. Say, if you say, okay, with 100 watts of electrical power, you can do marvelous cooking, which we know from solar cookers, like a solar box, that has easily 100 watts power directly from the sun. You can well insulate it. I don't know if you know now, there is also a conical cooker, which which is sort of the very cheap. The poor man's, say, concentrator, the parabola, which is at least $120. The big one sells for $20, but at sells, we can make it for $20. And that has a power of 300 watts. That means you can cook at least as fast as with the electrical power. And the other thing is, can one store it? Now, there are ways to do that, as you know, say in hay baskets and things like that. But I wondered if you can combine, say, your pan with, say, the erythritol or whatever, because that can handle a lot of energy in it, and heat it up directly in the sun, because quite often the sun shines for a few hours, and then in the afternoons there are some clouds and rains, and then electric stops. But if you harvest the sun between 10 o'clock and noon, you can use it all day, if you can store the heat. So is there a way to store the heat in a pan that is heated by just solar power? Because solar power, converting it to electricity, you lose a factor of 5.
Pink, okay, I think your voice is pretty garbled, but I think what you're saying is that you get higher efficiency with a straight solar thermal, and so maybe we could look at a phase change assembly to store energy, from the thermal, just as thermal solar concentrators. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what Sun Buckets is doing, right? Now, Sun Buckets are much more expensive than our technology, and they also require people to go outside. I mean, there's costs and benefits to all the different technologies, right? And so, I mean, I'm so happy if someone from your, community, I'd be very glad to collaboratively engage and help people learn how to use erythritol. And actually, you're bringing up a very good point here. If what you're doing is there's a couple things that aren't quite right, though. I have to disagree a little. And that is, you don't lose a factor of 5 when you go with solar panels, because that 20% of electricity goes right into the insulation, and that's stored very well. When you put a concentrator out in the sun, the light has to come in an aperture, and you are not going to harvest that thermal energy 100%. Reflectivity is not 100%. When you get
75%.
And when you get really hot, it will drop down to 0%, right? Because you'll be losing heat. So, but what you're saying is great. And the thing is, because you probably won't run at the high temperatures we do, erythritol may be a very good phase change storage medium for you, because we ran ours to 190 daily, but you might just run yours up to 140, and likely it will last indefinitely at that temperature. We have students measuring that right now. But if you want to share knowledge, I'm so glad to tell you everything we know about erythritol. Now I'm actually seeing Paul Averson's face now, and I recall that you had your hand raised, Paul.
Yes, Pete. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm working with Solar Household Energy in Washington, D.C. I followed your work over several years. I'm glad to finally see you face-to-face here. So I'm glad to have a chance to talk to you a little bit about your concepts. And when you introduced your ideas early on, my first reaction was that using PV panels for heating seemed extravagant. Electricity is a great low entropy source of energy and exergy that could be used for all kinds of other appliances. So in a way, my first reaction was it's kind of like burning your furniture up in your stove. But, as you said, the cost of PV is getting lower and lower. And so I am warming up to your ideas, so to speak. And in fact, I hope I get to meet you in person sometime. I may be going out to Southern California sometime later this summer.
I got
my mother.
I got a place for you to stay if you come by.
Thanks. Yeah, my mom lives down in Chula Vista, and she's 106, so I like to get out and see her once in a while during the year. Anyway, the my thinking is that since it is a versatile source of energy, when you're not using it for cooking, you can use the PV for other things, right? Like TV, radio, lights, refrigerator, phone charger, what else, right? So in a way, it's beginning to look like a solar home system, right? Basically a solar home system with versatile uses. And if that's the case, in other words, how much of the time during the day do you need to actually store enough energy for cooking? And the rest of the time, then, you can use for something else. So, that's one of my questions. Another question is,
Well, let me respond to your first statement, please.
Okay.
I'd actually turn it around on you there and say, you get a solar home energy system, and you use it for your lights, your cell phone, your TV. And then when they're charged, you use what's left over to heat up your phase change material and, cook whatever you want. And I mean, solar panels are going to get really cheap, right? And so at some point it'll be like, well, I mean, the home system costs much less than the solar panel. So why not buy 3? And then we got a 300-watt system, and your expense goes into how to manage that electricity rather than just how to generate it.
Okay. Yeah, well, affordability is a very critical issue because when we're talking about a country like Ghana, where the average income might be $1 or $2 a day, 5 cedis a day or something like that, that's tough, and that's really driving down costs. That's why some of us in Solar Household Energy, Roger Haynes, some of us have been working really hard to drive down costs to the point where things could be made mostly locally with simple, lightweight materials. And so you can make reflectors, for example, from palm leaf matting or straw or weaving materials that they already do for making baskets and so things like that. So I'm pursuing directions like that where the price can be really low. What we call low is not what Ghana calls low. It's almost like a logarithmic scale. It's you've got to get really low. When I was in Ghana for a conference a few years ago, I brought along some sample solar cookers, and I wanted to sell one of them to a lady there for $20. And at the end of the day, I just gave up and gave it away to her because there's no way she could have ever afforded that. They were selling these insulated cooking bags, the heat storage bags, for about 5 cedis, about $1, and they were going like hotcakes. They were very popular. So this is a challenge of thinking about the economics in a country in Africa. Anyway, I've also been researching. I'm a physicist by background, so I've been trying to apply some serious physical study to the design of solar cookers, and I haven't worked with PV panels much. Let me ask you, would it be helpful or cost-effective to add reflectors to PV panels to boost their output, or do they get into overheating problems?
I wouldn't do it. I think you're making trouble for yourself. Also, they're an array, a series, right? The cells are in series, and so you're not going to get uniform increased light by doing that. And so your current is going to be determined by the lowest amount of current or lowest intensity. It's not a good idea. And if you look at it, as soon as you do that, then you have to start tracking. And even the cost of the reflector to get that put on, in the next, like, I think what we want to work to is, when I buy a solar panel, a 100-watt solar panel, it costs me $100. And Robert Van Buskirk, I don't know if you're here, Robert, he can buy them for under $20 at the factory door in China. and he's selling them in Malawi for $27. 27, last I heard, maybe 25 cents a watt, right? So it's this coordination that's going to bring down your price much more than trying to figure out how to get a solar panel to put out more.
Okay.
Because I asked him, I said, how is it that in the past 5 years, the cost of making a solar panel has dropped so much and it's not any cheaper for me? And he said, because you're paying for, the advertising, the packaging, the shipping. And so that's not going to drop very much. My cost will not drop unless we find a way to bring them in.
Okay, so are these panels, is China the dominant supplier in the market now?
I think I'd want to ask Ajay, but I would bet that they're producing solar panels in India now too. I know they produce. Ajay, can you give me an answer on that?
In India, 100-watt panel will cost something like $40 now.
So $40 for a
Yeah,
100-watt
but bigger,
panel.
if you get bigger, then it's something like 25 cents a watt.
Wow. And are they made in India, Ajay?
A lot of them nowadays.
Excellent. Okay, so I've seen a hand go up. Seti,
Yeah,
I believe.
City, please go. Please go ahead. City.
You're muted, Seti.
We can't hear you. You're muted. City. Can you find?
Do you have her
control?
muted? Or is she muted on her end?
She's muted in her end.
Okay. Seti.
We take Robert first.
Okay. Yeah. Seti,
Yeah.
please find a way to unmute your mic so we can hear you. And we'll talk to Robert right now. Go ahead, Robert.
Are you also muted, Robert?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Now I can hear
Yes.
Okay,
Great.
good. All right. I'm Bob Metcalf, and I got a solar box cooker from Barbara Kerr and Sherry Cole back in 1978, and have started solar cooking then. And I'm using I use box cookers then for solar cooking. I'm going to be baking bread and doing our supper tonight. And what I've been working with in Kenya recently then, since 2010, after I resigned from Solar Cookers International after corruption and the embezzling that was taking place in Kenya. But I'm working still in Kenya. It's in Loranakach, Kenya. It's with the people that initially I worked with. And this is near Lake Victoria. There's 70,000 people there. And I'm working with the Friends of the Old organization. Friends of the Old, people like me, but they have nothing. So let's get a reality check here. There are 14,000 households there. People don't have electricity. They don't have running water. And my project is particularly to eliminate waterborne diseases by doing microbiology testing at the community level that I've taught them. Now, you put something valuable up to any place in Kenya, and it is stolen. You put up a solar panel someplace, and unless it's nailed down, it's stolen. There's Friends of the Old. We had a 3 by 4 foot metal sign at the road indicating where the photo office was. Somebody stole that because they can maybe get 50 shillings at some metal place. So you have anything valuable, you've got to think it's going to be stolen, at least if you're working in Kenya. And now, particularly with COVID-19, with no tourists coming to Kenya, people are really desperate. And with all of the countries that depend on tourists. And so where are people going to steal something? And you got to think about something that is theft proof. And in this project, then, we did have the cookets that were in this project, but then, and they work very fine. And, but the problem is that no one has any money to buy them. And, you know, you're talking about people that have not a dollar a day. They have hardly anything, and particularly the elderly that we're particularly targeting. So just think about 14,000 people, and this is just one part of Kenya. And these households that all of them need solar cooking. They have no money, and people will steal anything that's out there that has a value and change and turn it in.
Yeah, I don't quite know how to respond. Look, we're trying to pioneer and disseminate a technology that'll work. I think that these are differential measurements. How much is it going to cost you to cook with an ISEC versus charcoal? I fully recognize the gravity of what you're saying. I think these systemic concerns go beyond what we're doing. That people should not be that poor, and at the same time, yes, I have to accept that that's the situation. But I can't touch that. We're working with the technology. As far as theft is concerned, the only thing I could say about, the only way I could feel that is that would be the beauty of our collaborative model, that, we're happy to collaborate with people in that area to see what might work. But yes, I have to be resigned to say that I have no good answer for you, Robert, other than, we're looking to minimize the costs for a government organization or a nonprofit that is looking to bring people in a refugee camp the lowest cost, most effective cooking technology they can, for instance.
Can I say something? I have some remarks to that question. Can you please mute your microphone? But before I say something, I would like to give the word to Sedi, because I hope you have found a way to.
I hope it sticks now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
I had to go out of Chrome, so. Peter, I'm quite interested in your own personal experience cooking. So I think I have an ambition that the technologies we develop should be technologies that we'd like to use ourselves. So you say that you use it all the time. So how many do you cook for, and how much do you have to supplement with other technologies to be able to, feed your family?
Right. I cook for myself and whoever is visiting. Right.
Okay.
So like I can certainly cook food for 4 or 5 people with the 100-watt panel. If I had 8 people to cook for, I would have to cook differently, right? I would use the ISEC likely for beans and rice and stews. And then if I wanted something else, I would have to find another method, right? And so I think that it's important to recognize that we all use, maybe not we all, but because I've often heard, well, what do you do when it doesn't rain? And my response is, well, you do something else. If I want to grill something, I don't use my microwave oven. So I think that in a situation where you couldn't use the ISEC, you'd be back using what you did before. But I think that's going to be the case with many technologies. I hope that was helpful. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so if you say you cook for some friends, so would it be maybe one big meal a day, or could you have, lunch and dinner? Or
Yeah, you could have lunch and dinner. I think that if it was lunch and dinner for 8 people, you would need more power. If
And what and then the last question, what about like when it's evening time, how long can you wait and still use it before it loses the heat?
Yeah, so that's a question of insulation, right? So with our well insulated cooker that I have in my kitchen, because it's pretty big, the thermal conductivity is about 10 watts, no, 1/10 of a watt per Kelvin, right? So if there's 100 degrees, so if the ISEC is at 120 degrees, we'll be losing 10 watts. And so it'll be hot, into the evening. Cooking in the morning is a little dicier. Certainly, if you've cooked in the evening, in the morning, there's not much left.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your question, CD.
I think the only last question is about erythritol. Did you make some calculations on, I'm not sure how it's produced or where it's from, or how the environmental impact is from it.
So erythritol is a sugar alcohol that's naturally produced by pears, for instance, in different fruit, but it can also be made through a fermentation process. It's when I say get yourself 2 or 3 kilograms of erythritol, it would be equivalent to getting yourself 2 or 3 kilograms of sugar or a processed sugar. So I think that the environmental impact is pretty small.
Yes, can I add something to the discussion? Are you pleased, Sadie? So I don't interrupt you. Okay.
I think I'll just let you talk now because I've got someone calling.
Okay. I think the question of cost is who is going to use it. And we need to produce, develop equipment for different levels of income in societies. And I think it's good for those who don't have much to earn, to live on, $1 a day. They can see that there is a way for solar cooking. I can get more sophisticated units once I earn more money. So it's not only a technology for the poor, but the poor stigma will not be as large if you can see there's a future for solar cooking. That's my opinion.
Yeah, with our discussions with Deepak from India, one of the things that came out was if you build a technology for poor people, no one will want to use it because of the stigma. So you really want to aim your market at the middle class and then find a way to drive the cost down so more and more people can use it. But I fully recognize that Robert's response is going to be, but for my community, there's just no way.
Yeah, it's the box cooker that will help them. But can I ask you, if you have a box cooker, normal size, if you have a normal size of a box cooker for a family size, can you add the erythritol as a PECM in that box as an add-on feature?
Sure. And it'll be very effective if the temperature of the box cooker goes over 140, right? Up to 140. Yeah. But I have to ask. I mean, box cookers aren't free either, right? Like, how much does a well insulated box cooker cost?
I don't have the actual figure. Anyone?
I think Robert might.
Robert.
Yes, it costs too much for any of the people that we're working with. And that's why initially I did box cookers, but in 1995, the Cookit was discovered. And that's why in this project in Kenya that Solar Cookers International initially had, that we're going with the and because the cost.
Oh, so sorry, Ajay, can you? Thank you.
And
That's
okay.
That's this right here, right?
Yeah, that's the Cookit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's made by a company in Nairobi, or else you can make it yourself. And I've had workshops where people have taken cardboard, 3 by 4 foot pieces of cardboard. Maybe we have to tape them together, and in about an hour and a half, we make Cookits. I've done that a number of times. Now, what I do in my solar box cooker, when I'm not going to be eating the food right when the sun goes down about 6, I put in 2 bricks, okay? They weigh 6 pounds each, and that's my thermal mass that gets heated up during the day. I close the lid on it, and it keeps food hot for a couple of hours there. And so, you just use, so big stones or something like that if you're using box cookers. But the problem with box cookers, even though I introduced these successfully in a number of countries, is you could not scale them. And that's because they cost too much. And that's why then the Cookit, or the Rocker Haynes type of version that that he's working on too, you've got to have something that's so low cost that people will do it. But I love my box cookers. But in 1995, when Solar Cookers developed the Cookit, that's when we immediately shifted. And in 1995, I was in the Dadaab refugee camp in eastern Kenya with Somali refugees, and they love it. Don't say that, this idea that, if you design something for poor people. No, you design something that works. And what's your alternative?
Sure.
Okay, you want to go out and collect wood and cook over a fire, or you want to put it in a box cooker, and cook it like that. That was very appealing to the refugees in the camp and also in the Kakumu refugee camp. And what's so disappointing is that the UNHCR has never adopted those. They have so much problem with bringing fuel to places. And it's still out there, but it's not there. And even Solar Cookers International now has buried it. They have these ridiculous concentrating cookers that they are now promoting.
Well, Robert, I mean, maybe the most infuriating thing is that there's this poverty to begin with. And I mean, there is a possible mechanism, and that is the clean development mechanism, the carbon market. Peter Keller from Aid Africa in Uganda has secured a license to sell carbon credits that could be worth, on the order of millions, because he has introduced about 100,000 low carbon cookers. They're improved cook stoves. And so this may be a way to leverage rural electrification and cooking technologies for free if we can show that they're displacing carbon. So the industrial giants in Germany and the United States can buy those carbon credits as we move in a direction of carbon free by 2050.
Well, the problem is that right here in 2021, there are millions of
I understand. I understand.
Right now, and those carbon credits are for somebody that's also going to make a profit out of it by selling improved cook stoves like that. Mm-hmm. But I've always felt that, and when I've gone places with box cookers or with the Cookit, this is something that I use, and I use it regularly. And particularly with the Cookit, I'm a microbiologist, and you bring the Cookit in as a water pasteurizer. If you heat water to 65 Celsius, you can pasteurize the water, and we have a water pasteurization indicator, a little tube with a wax that melts in it that verifies that. Bring it in as a water pasteurization indicator. You got 2 billion people in the world that don't have safe water, and then it also can cook. So you have another handle in there instead of just cooking. And that's what we're doing in this Friends of the Old project in Lower Nakota. They would like to have it. People would love it. And this idea that something like a cook it, well, people would look down on it, okay? And so you know, that you would rather go collect wood, get a fire going, cook it like that, or how about we put your ugali out in the cook it and cook it like that while you're doing something else? Well, it's an easy sell when you bring it in that and you have experience using these yourself.
Thank you.
We have some comments on the cost. The box cookers in India, you can see on the chat, is $50 to $60. And the SK14 or Prince 15 is far more, $130 to $180. But I have one remark. The box cookers in Nairobi, made by a Soma Center, is a bit cheaper than this, and they can save as much money in 3 or 6 months by not buying charcoal,
Sure.
because that's a cost they have today.
Sure.
So you always have to compare the alternative cost. CD, did you have one more question? I saw your hand recently. Okay. Yes. So we made a presentation at the Council of Food last year where we discussed the situation in the world. We have someone's gone. Okay. We have, according to Hans Rosling, the Swedish professor that passed away some years ago, we have 4 different levels of living standard. Can someone mute your microphone? Thank you. And we think that we need to address all these 4 living standards to see that solar cooking is for everyone. And this is one step ahead, because neither UN, WHO, or other decision makers in Kenya, for example, are even mentioning solar cooking as an alternative to fossil-free fuel. So what can we do? What should we do, Pete?
Oh, I think we're doing it, right? I mean, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm trying to involve my students. I'm trying to involve collaborators, or I am involving my students. There she is, Katerina. I see her. She's right there. And in 10 minutes, I should be at the supergroup meeting that we have where, Ajay and my collaborators are going to be. I sent them a message that I might be late because you said that we'd like this meeting to go. And so, I mean, I think that it might be worth doing a meta-analysis and stepping back. What's happening is, I mean, I've identified, there are so many things I'm concerned about, right? There's malaria and there's war, right? And, I mean, poverty is not a natural problem. It's man-made, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at what's happening in erythritol, pardon me, in Yemen and Saudi Arabia, for instance, right? If we get into a political discussion here. But so, I mean, I think that I came here to talk about the technology we're working on and the options, right? And what's happening is we're spreading out into a discussion, for instance, what Robert's saying is this doesn't work for us. This is what works for us. And my response is, I'm really glad that you have that technology. It's not going to be what I work on. So I think that, we want to respect each other as a global community of scientists, researchers, merchants, practitioners, and recognize the different sectors we have. But I think that, you know, in the bigger picture, poverty itself is avoidable, and you know, so what do we do about that? But like, we've strayed so far from insulated solar electric cooking, and I'm not complaining, right? You know, I mean, it's all there, and we want to respect that.
Yeah. Thanks. Gustav, E6 on.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter, for a nice presentation. I'm curious, you mentioned looking at the time scale here. You said in 10 years there will be batteries, you know, replacing, and also it's interesting to look at, I mean, regarding where you are now with your research and all your students engaged, and how far away are you from sort of being able to have some set up sort of company to start selling this and getting a business model going, and, you know, all these things that, you know, people can start investing in and selling products, you know, and getting them out there. How far away are you from that, you would say?
Well, when I look at the technology, where we've come, and the work of Alonso of Sun Buckets, I think we will have, by the end of the summer, we will have products that are cost competitive. When we look at our global learning community, we are building, collectively, we're building a library of knowledge and manufacture capacity in, you know, arguably now 5 different centers. So I think I am, well, I'm an optimist, right? But I think by the end of the summer, we'll have something that we can start invoking, right? I mean, I know that I have something right now in my house that works really well for me. And I'm not about inconveniencing myself to cook. And that technology in India would be well under $100. And so, you know, you're looking at something that is cheaper than buying coal and natural gas over the long run. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thanks. No, it's good just to get an idea of the time scale also, also to get, you know, as long as you have a product, that's something that people could start like investing in, and you get it's just finding that, you know, we talk about the cost back and forth, but of course, you know, we're replacing some other cost, or how can you find out like pay-as-you-go systems? It will depend on which stage of sort of, you know, income level you're all the time. But I think it's just interesting to hear that you're so close of giving an alternative for to the, you know, the LPGs, etc., etc. So I think that's good to know. Thank you.
And Gustav, I think it's really important for us to recognize it will take a few years to get our act together and be producing stuff. And so we really want to look at what are the cost trends. So in the past 20 years, the cost of lithium-ion batteries has dropped by a factor of 10. And so now a reasonable lithium-ion battery is maybe $100, maybe $200. But in another 10 years, you know, it'll be $20. And solar panels will be 100 watts will probably be $10 as well. And so, so as we build our technology on what is cost competitive today, we want to keep an eye on what's going to be cost competitive tomorrow. And so insulated solar electric cooking, putting the panels up, using a thermal storage device that, oh, and I failed to mention that iron is actually better than, steel is better than aluminum per unit volume, right? So that's what we're looking at now, is using steel. So those technologies that we put into place, at some point, we're going to say, you know, nothing's better than a battery. You can store the electricity and you can use it in 3 days, right? And you can get almost all of it back. But that technology, we want to be thinking, will step right into what we've already developed, so that when we find out what we've been working on isn't cost competitive anymore, we don't throw our hands up and say, why did we waste our time, right? Because we're building capacity. And I'd like to think that we're also building manufacture capacity and technical expertise right now in Cameroon, in Sierra Leone, in Ghana, and Togo.
Great. Let me come to that. Pete, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, fine. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is a very interesting discussion. Before we leave, you said you have a meeting very soon. I would like you to guide us through your, what you call it, learning community. You have on your home page somewhere a lot of information and a lot of discussion groups. Where can we interested persons fit in that?
Yeah. Anywhere you like, right?
Okay.
I have yet, and this is a problem for me increasingly. I have yet to say, I don't think we have capacity to work with you. I have yet to say that to anyone. I can always get a group of students that's interested to work with someone. We can include people in our supergroup meetings that we have in, right now is starting. So where I can guide you is to the website, which I'm reasonably sure is on the publication. So if I were to take the screen again.
My idea might be that some of us could build a new learning community somewhere where we are active.
I think it's a great idea. Now you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is my research site. Right? There's Martin on Father's Day. We were all together last summer. And so, here is the one of the construction manuals. Here is, our videos and our publications. These are my reports to our funders, Modern Energy Cooking Systems. These are a list of our collaborators. Likely I should update it. These are pictures from, many weeks of meetings. So if you like, I'll just put this in the chat. Now I'm looking for chat. Where is chat?
The sign down to the right on my screen with a bubble and some lines, like a sheet.
I see switch camera captions. I just don't see it. I'm confused.
Do you want to present the website?
Yeah, I just want to present it.
I can give the link.
Oh, okay, there you go. There you go. And yeah, so contact me. Let me know how we can work together. What you're interested in. I think, like for instance, if you're interested in the Cook It, I don't know how we would engage, but for instance, if you have box heaters, I'll tell you everything we've learned about erythritol as a phase change. If you put a brick in your box cooker, I can only say if the brick is made out of iron, it's going to work better than made out of stone. But I look forward to hearing any correspondence.
Fine.
Okay.
Cindy, did you have one more question?
So I think it makes sense, Stefan, like you've been doing to, keep a community alive. If they're very busy with Peter and they don't have so much capacity, it's because, here in Denmark, I've been playing around with the solar electric cooker. So it's nice to share ideas. But maybe both things will keep running. Stefan, you will keep inviting for webinars. So what's your thought on the future?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Sadie.
Yeah, we have to do something.
Right.
And, but you have also a page with a lot of discussion, questions and answers. I saw something.
Yes, that's the forum. So if you go down and you click on the forum, it will lead you to the discussions we've been having.
Yeah. And it's possible for anyone to go into the forum.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
thank
It's
you.
it's a little bit wonky. Like loading pictures takes a little bit of effort, and we are trying to make it easier. But for now, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Fine.
Okay. And yeah,
Gustav, you had sorry. Yeah.
and reach out to me personally. Right.
Thanks very much. Gustav, did you have something more?
Yeah, very short, but just, Peter, if let's say we pass by at your place and you don't know, you're going to cook something for us with your amazing invention here.
Oh,
what dish would you serve us? That would be great.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. I'll put a knife.
What dish is your favorite to do? To show us.
My favorite is probably eggplant, right?
Oh, great.
Yeah, eggplant is really great. So one of the things you find, I mean, when you switch your cooking technology, you're going to switch your cooking processes a little bit. And so water is your enemy for ISEC because the power and the temperatures are low, and water will boil and you won't be able to get over 100 Celsius. So for instance, then you're going to boil your onions rather than caramelize them, or rather than burn them, right? I love like mildly burnt onions. And so you got to keep the water out. So you do something different. One, you can cook your onions, like this is without thermal storage, right? So if you're down to 100 watts, you cook your onions and your garlic first, and when they start to brown, then you throw the other stuff in. But with eggplant, it's great. I learned this when they talked about it in Fiji, how they cook eggplant, is you don't chop it up. So I put in a whole eggplant, I just take the green stuff off the top, right? And then the water doesn't come out, so I can throw everything in. I throw in, and you can see it on the forum, I show pictures of it. You just throw in the eggplant with all the onions and the garlic, and it all browns. And then you go in with a spoon and you stir it up, and the eggplant turns to baba ganoush in a moment, and it's great. So that's my favorite thing to cook.
All right, great, thanks. Thanks for that.
All right, that's a great note to leave on. I look forward to making eggplant for you, Gustav, when you visit.